Welcome to Celestial You. Okay, guys, today I have a serious episode. We're actually going to open the e-files on one of America's gurus. It's actually a person that is local to San Diego, which is why I wanted to start with him. And it's Deepak Chopra. I don't know if you know, but he has been exposed as being a part of the what I'm going to call e-files. And today I'm actually going to use a technology which I want to show you guys because Ian Carroll, an investigator, a journalist, along with two other developers, made an open source program. It's called Web, WEBB.io. And it's actually something that you can go and use for yourself. Right now it's in beta, and right now it's free. So you can try it. Basically, I would encourage you to learn how to use this. I would encourage you to look up people in your sphere and double check to see if they are affiliated with E. So this episode, we're also going to look at Deepak Chopra's chart and see how his astrology may tell the story of why he's even affiliated and answer the question, is this a guru or is this America's guru problem? And what I mean by guru problem is in India, they've been saying for the longest time, they have a guru problem, which is that the gurus are apparently part of the exploitation of women, etc. And so, yeah, I feel really passionate about using my astrology to shine a light on folks that have been operating in the darkness. Okay, go ahead and hit the like button, share this video. I want a lot of people checking out web.io, and also put in the comments who you want me to do next. I'll see if they have information in the e-files. I'd like to shine a light on the predator class if I can. So I need your help to do that. I need the suggestions. I also have to caveat this episode by saying I typically do not go into these kinds of details. I would certainly not share these kinds of details about a chart, but you have to know that his birth details are public. And given that he is involved in these nefarious, what I think allegedly nefarious activities, I think it's probably the best use of my astrology given the times we're in. So hopefully you'll like this episode and hopefully this will bring you encouragement. Another note about this is that we are also, I've spoken about this in some of my previous videos if you want to go check them out, the 2026 prediction video and also the video about Saturn going into Aries. So the main reason why we are able as a populace to have exposure to this information, it's not because suddenly things are more corrupt. It is that corrupt things are now visible and that we are now in the Aquarian age where people can actually investigate them. I think what's exciting about this time is that we are truly in an age of technology that allows for regular people like me to go investigate things. And well, because of the work of Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey, of course, in releasing the files, we're now able to use open source, new technologies where AI can facilitate citizen journalists like me and you to investigate people. We no longer have to wonder if they are who they say they are. And especially in the spiritual community, I think this is important. I also am a pharmacist. I took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And I know that Deepak Chopra is a physician. He's actually from India, and he's an endocrinologist, which is really funny because my dad's an endocrinologist. So this really is too close for comfort in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm a very spiritual person. I personally didn't follow Deepak Chopra very much. I think I may have listened to his affirmations maybe like 15 years ago. But since then, I haven't really followed him. But I know that many people do. He's published something on the order of, I don't know, 20, 30 books. He's very well known. He, I think, was co-working with Dave Asprey on the Viome project. And yeah, he's everywhere. So the fact that this man has had so much success, and we find that he has a clandestine relationship with E, and is now revealed by the E files. I'm going to go ahead and use Web and show you guys exactly what kind of relationship that was. And then I'm going to show you the nature of it and really try to expose what I'm calling the predator class. And in addition to that, I'm going to then show you his astrological chart and where this might fit in to his personal astrology. And I hope to continue this series because I'm really interested in what regular people can do to investigate and vet famous gurus, famous physicians, and other people, maybe even people in our government. I'm actually a suggestion. If has a birth chart, has a birth time that I can get a birth chart off of, then I can dig through the files again and present what I know about their astrology and how that helps us to discern. The reason I'm doing this is not really to put someone on blast. It's more so because I feel very strongly that we need to use discernment in these times. And if I have access to a gift, an ability that is able to shine light on a very dark situation, I do believe that light is the best disinfectant. And that instead of saying, oh, we're just going to cancel this person and not go to the Chopra Center in San Diego, or we're not going to do this or that, that's good. That's a start. I think probably everybody was shopping at Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, Limited To, and if you don't know, those all were Les Wexner's enterprise, and they're tied into allegedly tied into trafficking. So we all need to, I believe, now I won't tell other people what to do, but as far as I know, as we go into the Aquarian age, and because Pluto is in Aquarius now, Pluto tends to expose the power structures. It tends to give us the people, because especially in Aquarius. Aquarius is about society and it's about technology. And so when society acquires technology, we can transform the power structures. And that's what's happening right now. But it's not going to happen unless we get together and we throw our weight behind or away from activities that we think are unethical. And it's probably the first time in history that the collective actually has so much weight. You know, because before this, we were unaware the extent of the activities. I mean, some of us actually knew this was going on because we knew about, how do I say this? We knew about what was happening with Podesta and WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, and we knew that elements of government were compromised, and that was, you know, that was a Democratic leadership, and now we're in the Republican leadership, and both are immersed in this. So this is actually not a political issue whatsoever. This, I think, is a humanitarian issue. And that's why I'm taking this on. I'm not inherently faithful to any political party. I do have policy positions that I believe in for my own ethics, but I think this transcends politics entirely, and that's what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in facilitating, teaching how we can increase our discernment as a community, as a society, and that we could take our power back. And so that's why I'm doing this series. Okay, guys, so this is web.io, and it was named after Gary Webb, who was an investigative journalist who was allegedly unalived himself, they said. Anyway, also it's Web, WEBB, because of Whitney Webb as well, who's an investigative journalist. She wrote the book One Nation Under Blackmail. She's probably the most prolific investigative journalist that has dug deep into the trafficking issue. So as far as this program, it is so much easier to use than the government website in the sense that here are all the files, but what I actually did is I actually just started a chat, and I'm using the AI chat to research what I'm asking about the files from the files. Web is going to start out with the e-files, and then the creators, Ian Carroll, which you should go follow like right now. He's amazing. And he also has other apps like the Buyer app, amazing app. But the way that it's structured is they're going to start with the e-files, but then they're also going to start putting in other sets of data, like such as they're toying with the idea of putting in newspapers and putting in biblical text or like scripture or whatever. So, and the reason why you would do that is because of the searchability and the way in which AI can help us facilitate investigation, study, that kind of thing. And so this is only going to expand. Right now, it's free, but later it's probably going to take it's probably going to be a charge just to use the AI portion of it. The actual rest of the infrastructure was made to be open source. So definitely go follow Ian Carroll because he's the OG. And he's been doing a lot of these videos, deep diving into stuff. So, and especially if you are interested in using this type of technology in the future, or you're interested in investigating things or citizen journalism, I think we can safely say that there is so much happening right now where we don't have our governments investigating these things. There's failures within our governments, and they want to keep a lot of this stuff secret. And that has actually always been the case, regardless of party. I just want to make that clear. There's no good parties here. There are ties within all. So what I did is I just searched Deepak Chopra, and I actually asked a few questions. I wanted to know whether he had ties and what kind of ties he had. So first off, what it does on the right-hand side, you can see a vast questions. It's actually answering my questions. Before this, I actually went to the government website. I looked up and read his files one by one, but they weren't as good as Web and what Web can do. So the bottom line is that he actually has financial connections to E. And there was a $50,000 donation from E to Chopra's foundation in October 2017. And I want to also say, if you want to look at the references, they're in red, and you can go to the actual source, which you should do, and check out those sources and make sure you agree with it. But this is one way to investigate. Also, another thing is, if you are not aware, this trafficker, E, was first convicted back in 2008. And it says a lot that there's a medical doctor, which Chopra is, taking a donation from him of this size. Another thing that the AI found, and actually I didn't even find all of this the first time because I was just looking at the individual emails, a very difficult way of looking at it. But he also, there's multiple times, they met multiple times at his private residence in New York. And Chopra was invited to go to his island, and he was invited to go to the ranch, Zorro Ranch, as well. There were also, it appears within the emails that there's some sort of Harvard connection. They have Harvard connections together. And it also appears that Chopra gave him a recommendation to a scientist, and that may have been why he then gave him the donations. So, because that followed that in the timeline. And so Webb just gave us a timeline of, when these activities were going on. So it's saying July 16th. E invites Chopra to his island, invitation to Harvard events, Lawrence Krauss and Woody Allen dinner. So, really chummy there. They had meetings at his house, and then they discussed executing this donation from E to Chopra to his foundation, and then a couple of other things. Now, overall, the individual emails are pretty professional. There are portions of it that allude to things, and it is just on its face. If a medical doctor should have known that this person is a convicted sex offender, so it's strange that strange doesn't even begin to cover this, actually. And because I know, and I've read some of the emails, I knew that there were references to him and girls. So I directed Web to search for that kind of content. I just asked the questions as I would to a normal person. And it brought up this information in November 20th, 2017. There was an email exchange, and it's pretty concerning. Deepak was invited to invited E to a Wall Street event on Friday, November 2017. And so there's that, but then also, and we can check that one out. Let's take a look at that one. I'm not sure if I've read through. See how easy it is to just get in here? Yeah, I think the concerning part is they're writing back and forth. So this part is from Chopra, and then this part is from E. So, he's like, come as my guest with anyone if easy. And then he says, I'm in Florida, but I would like to send 2 girls. So that's not great. Let's look at the next one. It's not great for Chopra's involvement. Okay, this is actually the same email thread. That happens sometimes because it's duplicative. Okay. Then there's this other one. Oh, is this the same one? So some of these are the same. These are the same. Okay. Okay, and then Web will actually like speculate as to why these things are weird. There's also this incident in February 25th of 2017 where Chopra invited E to go to Israel. Come to Israel with us, relax, have fun with interesting people. If you want to use a fake name, bring your girls. It will be fun to have you. Let's go look at that one. By the way, you guys, I have actually seen all of these on the government website as well because I wanted to research this. But if you look at this number, this file name, actually, you can go drop it into the government website and you can double check that it's real. I just happen to know it is because I've seen it already from there. And I do recommend you do that just to kind of assure to yourself that, so Web is not going to hallucinate. It doesn't have like AI psychosis or anything like that, which is a problem with some AI because the only set of data it's looking at are these governmental files. It's not extrapolating from other things on the internet. So it's restricted. And it's also programmed in such a way where it has to show its work for everything that it is saying and alleging, right? And so let's look at this one. This one says, that's so funny. He says, I'm just laughing. Okay, your girls would love it as would you. Be well, sending love. First of all, if you're at a point where you're sending love, right? And this is how they talk in all of the emails, right? They're chummy. Let's just put that out there. And then he says another location, I do not like Israel at all, which is really funny because spoiler alert, there's references to Israel everywhere. And unlike what it says in mainstream news, there's very little references to Russia. And I think so that's the funniest part is they're definitely getting that wrong in mainstream news. Okay, there's that. He also invited him to a retreat. Banff, Canada. The girls might enjoy it. By the way, guys, E does not have daughters. So when we keep mentioning girls, it's definitely not his daughters, right? So that's another thing. The girls might enjoy it. So that's what he's saying. He's inviting him to go to Chopra is inviting him to go to Banff, Canada, to a resort and a retreat. And then also in Switzerland, you should come to my 2-day workshop with your girls in Zurich, right? These people, they saw each other a lot. Like, I don't even know if I see my friends this much within several years, you know. So that's this email, making plans to go to Switzerland, and then massage references. Still talking about Canada and massage references and all of that. Oops, this one. Arena or others could get massages. Also, by the way, like, really bad writing in all of this. But these people use email like we text. For some reason, even in 2017, they weren't texting; they were using email, and like with poor English and punctuation. This is another email regarding it's kind of the same email about massages. I could arrange for scientists, MDs, and researchers to give you a presentation. So this is Chopra offering this. They get massages along with that. The girls would enjoy it. So basically, what I'm finding out in these emails is that he was somehow mixing his retreats by inviting either, and then, coordinating with scientists. He had a sick fascination with scientists. And I believe that ultimately led to Chopra leading into some sort of mathematician scientist. There's also breadcrumbs of that in here as well. Let me see if I can find that one. That was in my previous. One. Okay, so now I want to know more about this $50,000 donation to his foundation. So I went to this part of the conversation I'm having with the AI web, and I just click here and find the emails related to it. And basically, it's something about a math savant that was forwarded. I don't know what that is related to, but then for whatever reason, Deepak then says, I think a small grant will cover all expenses. If you wish to make a donation to our foundation, that will be gratefully acknowledged. Otherwise, also okay. Hope to see you soon, love. Okay. And then he says, Rich, he's talking to his financial person, Richard Khan. Instead of Khalif, make 50K donation to Deepak's foundation from gratitude. So they're definitely swapping funds. I don't know who the math savant is. This was in response to Chopra forwarding information about a math savant. I don't know if this is just like relevant to a conversation they had, or what, did he put him in touch with a math savant? I'm going to ask actually if the AI can find out more information. Do we know more about, the math savant and the value to E? Okay, let's find out. See what we can find out. There may not be any more than that, but I just wanted to check and see what it comes. So here it's just thinking. And I'll scroll down. It'll be at the end when it shows up because I've had a long conversation and the AI has been telling me a lot about this feller. Okay. Ooh, what is going on? Looks like it's showing something here. Okay. Do we know more about the math savant that he's referring to? Okay. The math savant comes from an email chain. The key exchange begins with Deepak Chopra forwarding information to E. Math savant. Okay, this is a math savant from India. He's 12 years old. He's a prodigy. He's been on TV and in the news. He's a genius. He's a child prodigy. He's a math savant. He's a genius. Okay, I don't know why I keep saying the same thing. Okay. Oh, it just looks like something he may have forwarded to him. All right. So this is kind of one of those things that I don't really know what the 50K is really for, but maybe it's for something that we don't really know what it's for. For now, I think I've seen enough regarding how chummy this doctor is with E and his network. So now I want to just go ahead and pull up Deepak Chopra's chart and see why is he involved with these unsavory people. Okay, I also wanted to share with you guys one more file, which I just took a screenshot of because I was looking at other things. But in this email from Deepak Chopra to E, he was talking about, by the way, do you know Marla Maples? Anything we can share is between us. I share nothing with anyone but trust you. So I wanted to say this was a relationship that he built with him that was pretty close, chummy. It was based on trust. What else could this relationship have been based on? Let's go look. Okay, so this is Deepak Chopra's chart. This is as seen in the South Indian style chart. That's the type of chart that I like to look at. That's the format I like to look at. It's still in the tropical zodiac, so if you're familiar with that, the placements are the same. But the first thing I want to say is that typically doctors will have some sort of Virgo, Pisces axis. So Pisces rising. So what is that? Pisces is typically, Pisces risings are nurses, doctors. They typically are in the healing fields, right? But you have to ask, like, why did this go so south? And I actually did take a little bit of time to look into Deepak's background, and he was accused of sexual assault before. And sorry, I'm just not good at like codifying my language. I don't even know if I'll continue to do that. But he was accused of this, I think, like back in like 1996 or so. Don't get mad at me if I got that wrong. And those charges were dropped, or that lawsuit was dropped. So it's really interesting that he's at least had that come up before in the past. But it's like, what kind of doctor was he? Well, and why did this go so south? Well, you want to look at, so the rising sign is going to give you, how does this person kind of go about their life? What's their approach to life? How are they seen by others? How are they in conversation? What's their personality, right? And so Pisces is actually relatively demure. You know, it's a demure person. Now, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and Scorpio. So my listeners, if you know what Scorpio is like, Scorpios are not, they can be acting in subterfuge. They can be concealing quite a bit. Now, Jupiter by itself is a good planet. And in fact, Jupiter in Scorpios, not necessarily bad all by itself. I see a lot of physicists have this placement. I see a lot of folks that are investigators, scientists have this placement. That it's not bad on its own, right? Because Scorpios are concerned with the underneath, right? They like to talk about science. There's a lot of e-files about him talking about Harvard, you know, and intellectuals and scientists. In fact, that he had that in common with E, right? So when you look at this chart, you're primarily looking, okay, what could have gone wrong here? Well, it's on the eighth cusp. So the eighth cusp Scorpio, that's, you know, it's an area of taboo. It can be. Now, I'm going to read this chart and I'm going to say a person could have this chart and not necessarily be completely duplicitous or anything like that. I am reading this chart in the context of what we just read. If a client comes to me, I'm not going to read their chart this way, because people who come to me want real help. You know, they're not living a side life or whatever, you know. So, but Pisces risings tend to be subtle in their approach. They tend not to tell, they have a lot of secrets. They can have a lot of secrets. They don't like to directly oppose people. But when you see the Jupiters in the eighth, this is a person who could have a lot of taboos, and especially because Mars is malefic and right next to it. Mars is desire. Mars is the masculine energy. And when the masculine energy is subverted, or it's underneath in Scorpio, it can actually mean that this person, they're not direct, but that doesn't mean they're not abusive, right? And that's what we have to understand in the spiritual community, that there are people who can be gurus, right? And they could be hiding some subversive, abusive tendencies. Now, he doesn't come off that way as much, and the reason why is because he does have Mercury here. Now, Mercury, when it's with a malefic turns into a malefic. And so, you know, I think Jupiter being a benefic, normally you would look at that and say, well, there's two benefics. There's one malefic here, Mars being the malefic. Mercury is just the way you communicate, right? It's your mind, speech and all that. And he does very much speak. It's understated because Scorpio is not, it is ruled by Mars, but it is the feminine sign of Mars, meaning it's subtle, right? And that's where you're getting this person who communicates, he's kind of nerdy, you know, on the outside, right? He's a nerd, he's scientific. Scorpio could be somebody who has transcended a lot in their life. And in this, you know, eighth house just means that this person's gone through a lot of changes, a lot of abuse themselves, particularly taboos, secrets, things like that have happened to this person. And they've been through their own adversity. And of course, you know that you can either choose, here's where the choice point is in life. You can choose to inflict that upon others. You can choose to, maybe you're not inflicting it upon others, but you are, you're allowing for it to happen. Or you're complicit, right? So this could make somebody complicit with abuse, just because he's somehow normalized it in his own thoughts, in his own undergirding of his personality, that he's okay with the shadows. And that's actually a part of his, what he desires is taboo. So this is where we're getting some of this influence. Also, I want to notate that he has Saturn in the 6th in Leo. So normally Leo is a bright and happy sign. It's Leo the king, right? But when you have Saturn there, there's an exaggerated sense of responsibility. This person has it on the 6th house. So Saturn in the 6th house is not inherently bad. It just gives you a lot of force, and it can result in the 6th house in litigations, lawsuits of that kind. So it kind of shows a personality of someone who's not uninhibited, because their Leo, their self-expression is shrouded in like a paternal energy, or like a ultra responsible, restricted energy. And that kind of that sounds like him, right? And at the same time, he is a Libra sun. So we have to look at that as well. So Libra suns tend to be conscientious. They tend to be more concerned with how kind of things look aesthetically rather than what they maybe are. And in particular, this is because Saturn is aspecting. So Saturn is heavily aspecting the sun and all of these planets. And so what does that do? Well, the sun is already debilitated because it's in Libra. So why is that? Well, sun is like, it's exalted at Aries. So on the flip side, in Libra, it's uncomfortable always having to be conscientious about the other person, because Libra is the sign of relationship, right? And so I would see him as being overly conscientious. And why? Because he feels he can't express himself fully in relationship. So there's already something going on here with his self-esteem. You know, that's why the emails are so proper on from his end. But, he's super happy to be in this trusting relationship, right? That happens to be super taboo. And that relationship also, when Saturn aspects this house, Scorpio house of taboos, it's basically, so his sun is shamed, and the things he desires, the things he wants are shamed by this Saturn aspect. So that's why it's going underground. Now, he does have good planets, and this is why he's had some popularity, and this is Venus in the 9th. This is going to give him the guru. It's in Sagittarius, so beautiful. He does technically have a good Jupiter. Well, it's neutral in dignity, but it's good enough to make him, especially on the 9th and 10th. This is a past life thing. He knows how to be the guru, because Venus is the guru of the mundane activities, meaning he's very good at telling people what to do on a daily basis. And then he's, on the other side, with Jupiter being the God planet, the guru of the big pictures type stuff, he gets really into science. So that's why he's involved in like the gut microbiome and all of those things. Another interesting aspect of this chart is that on the 7th house, which is relationships, is Moon in Virgo. So Moon in Virgo in the 7th, it just means that in his relationships, marriageable relationships in particular, he wants to have like a purity, because Virgo is younger woman, young virgin woman. And so that's what he's looking for. You also see that's going to be what he's attracted to, is just kind of younger, more innocent women. I think that's why he just keeps calling them girls, So the sign that once we know the information in the e-files, looking at this differently, it's not all light and love going on here. And in particular, actually, this software, the Kala software, Ernst Wilhelm software, goes into detail. It actually pulls up yogas, which are hardly appropriate for me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So if you want to stick around for this part, let's do it. I probably will like euphemize some of these because they have to do with schmexuality. All right. So in the Vedic texts, they have clues as to what's going on with this person on a schmexual level. So I'm just laughing because I can't believe I have to say it that way. But so he does have a lot of, I'm putting them up on the screen and I'll read through some of them. So Lagna Lord with Malefic indicates a schmexual rake. So this is what I was talking about. This is Jupiter, and then it's with a malefic. So Mars is the malefic. In particular, too, because Mars rules desire, there's something unsavory there going on. Now, not everybody that has this chart would be an unsavory individual. It also has to do with choice, and Scorpios can evolve. I mean, not Scorpios, people with Scorpio placements. He's a Libra, but he has Scorpio planets. They can evolve. It's just whether they choose to or not. We do have free will. Okay, so Venus in the Navamsha of, or Rashi of Mars. So he actually has Venus in Aries in his Navamsha. And so that just makes a person do certain acts, which I'm not going to repeat. There's also the seventh lord in Mars Rashi aspected by a malefic. So this is the lord of the seventh is Mercury, aspected by a malefic, which is Mars. Native will have abnormal relations with a cow. So I have to say, I don't usually go into this area of the chart, yo guys, just because people don't ask me for this. And if you have within your chart some of these, that doesn't necessarily mean that this would be true. It just means that this person might have some abnormal relations. I think it's interesting that it's showing up on this wildly popular guru that is native to San Diego. Okay. So then we've got Venus and Moon influencing the seventh will cause relationships with prostitutes. So Moon is influencing the seventh. I mean, again, like not always the case that this will happen, but the ruler of the seventh is also right next to Mars, and it's in this taboo house. And so that's what makes it possible for this to be the case for Chopra. All right. Let's see what else he's got. Okay, Venus in the Navamsha of Mars or Saturn aspected by planets indicates that the native will have illicit relations with others' wives. So another piece of this is I believe he's actually married, and he, is like in all these emails asking for E to bring his girls, right? And so it does bear mentioning that this man has the propensity for illicit relations with others' wives. Allegedly. This is all alleged. This is for entertainment purposes. Please don't come after me. All right. The seventh lord or Venus joined with Rahu or Ketu and aspected by a malefic indicates that the native or his wife will be adulterous. So Venus with Ketu aspected by a malefic. And so Venus is actually somewhat aspected by Saturn as a malefic. And if you're looking at another aspect, another form of aspect, you could see that Moon is Rashi aspecting this house. And it's a malefic moon. So that makes sense here too. So this could be his wife being adulterous. Okay. Native or his wife being adulterous. Okay. And then if the seventh is in the Navamsha of a benefic, the female native will have, it's not a female native. So we'll skip that one. Okay. All right. So I have had quite enough of Deepak Chopra. And it's interesting because I'm sure if someone had done his astrological reading not knowing what we know today, I'm sure it would be very different. But knowing what we know today, I want to know what you guys think in the comments. If I am, like I said, I wasn't a huge follower. I didn't really follow his work, but I also am not too happy with what's happening within the spiritual community. All right, I also wanted to show you one last thing, and that is that on January 30th, I wanted to see what happened in Deepak Chopra's chart. What was the impact? What's happening in his world, in his transits with his chart, that the e-files were released? What does it mean for him? And so actually, really funny, he has Saturn right on his ascendant when these were released. So I think we have to go back to, and I think this is a theme within his chart, is that Saturn is the planet of responsibility, but it can also be the planet of lies and shame. And if I'm interpreting this, I'm going to say that, you know, his lies are coming out and that he's having to take responsibility for what he's done in private. The secrets he was engaged in. And I do think that this is going to mar his career because of the way he's acted. And rightfully so. I think this is also just really funny because Venus is here when this happened in Pisces with Rahu, North Node. And we also see Neptune. And so it's funny that this is all opposing the moon in Virgo. It's hilarious. Because what this essentially means is that his reputation as a healer is opposed to, it's getting trashed essentially. And that is opposed to how he likes to have his relationships in the 7th house with his moon in Virgo. He likes to have these virginal relationships or these like acts of service type relationships. But what's really happened is, you know, that's being challenged by what's come out at this time, at the time that those files are released. So I don't think his empire is going to survive, but I think we can learn from it. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. I hope that this was helpful in the sense of being able to increase our discernment. Like I said before, I wasn't a huge follower of Deepak Chopra's before this. I've never been to the Chopra Center. But what I will say is that the Aquarian age is about the information that we have access to as a collective. And so if we have access to this kind of information, we should use it because the power dynamics are shifting in this age. And it's really only the next, I think, like 19 years or whatever of Pluto in Aquarius that we have left. And during this time, you know, you can choose to think of it as a negative event, or you could choose to think of this as the ways in which we are going to be empowered by information and how we can use AI as a tool, not to replace our discernment, but to investigate, right? Just like I did today. What the best thing that I could bring to you guys is a marriage between the esoteric knowledge, the ancient knowledge, and the technology of today, and fuse that together. And I hope that you guys check out web.io, two B's, and also Ian Carroll's work. And I hope you guys play with it and also do your own investigations. Don't just take my word for it today. I mean, I showed you what I saw in the files, and thank you so much. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.